How's it going, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Feels like a little while, or more than a little while, since I last did a review, an actual review for a film which I watched and had some thoughts on, which is strange because it's what this channel was supposed to be. But it's a bit of a strange time because I guess I'm not going to the cinema, so usually it'd be go see the new film that's out, come back, put a review out for you guys. Bob's your uncle. Or Kevin. But that's not really happening at the moment. There's none of that going to the cinema. They're not open. So it's sort of like, what do I review? And then I realized there are still films in existence that I could talk about. And so during lockdown, I bought a few that I haven't seen yet that I've been told are very, very good. I bought a couple of Criterions, which if you don't know are like the Rolls Royce of Blu-rays. Is that still an analogy people use? That might be, what, Tesla now? Doesn't feel right. I'm sticking with Rolls Royce. These two that I got were ones which I've always sort of been sat watching from a distance. Like I should buy them. I should really buy them. I need to buy them. They're two Edward Yang films. Who's a Taiwanese filmmaker, an incredibly acclaimed director, sadly not with us anymore. But I picked up two of his films, and today I'm talking about one of those, which is A Brighter Summer Day. Because the only thing better than reviewing current releases is reviewing films that came out nearly 30 years ago. As I said, for far too long now, I've been seeing various things about this film online, particularly on Letterboxd, but across wherever films are discussed, usually saying a lot of very good things about it. I think this is in the Letterboxd top, 20 films of all time. It's on a lot of people's top lists, so I had to get my eyes on it. I love me some world cinema, and I love me some coming-of-age stuff, which is what this sounded like it was going to be. But mainly, I need to put my hands up here and say, it's kind of just the cover of it. So if you haven't heard about it, it's directed by Edward Yang, as I said, a Taiwanese filmmaker, and it's set during the 1960s, and it's based on an event which Yang says he can remember happening in his childhood. I won't go into specifics of what that event was, because it kind of spoils the film a little bit. I didn't know what it was, so watching the film without that in mind, I think, certainly allowed me to let it take me. Questionable wording, Stu. To keep it kind of vague, the story follows a group of kids, or should I say, two groups of kids, teenagers, as they grow up in the 1960s in Taipei. Without going into history lessons, because you guessed it, I'm not a history professor. It's a time of unrest. Who do I think I am? It was a time of unrest. No way of saying that without sounding like I'm doing a documentary voiceover. But there was a lot of unrest in Taipei at that time. You've got a lot of people moving from mainland China with the splitting of certain states. And as a result, you've got a whole lot of people displaced in a location where they feel a little bit disconnected from everyone else. And so you find a lot of people sort of, I guess, confused about where they sit in terms of a collective and the people that they call a community. In this film, that sort of angst that you feel as a teenager manifests itself in these gangs, these rival gangs. And so a lot of this film follows how those two gangs and the people within those gangs relate with each other and all of the outside situations that come from that. It's a big film in terms of the threads of the story, but at the center of it, it's these two rival gangs, really. It's epic. I mean, it's not epic in the kind of Avengers, Thor picks up the hammer and everyone goes nuts in the cinema sort of way, but it's epic in the scope of this thing. I mean, it's 4 hours long. I mean, I should probably lead with that. Don't let that put you off. There's a lot of people that are like, what? I'm definitely not sitting down for that long. But once you see the film, it couldn't be any shorter. It just couldn't. Because the story that Yang tells here and the way it's told absolutely needs to be that long to work. And that's the first thing that immediately blew me away about this film, is that it manages to make 4 hours feel like a lot shorter, to be honest. It's paced impeccably. It's some of the best pacing I've seen in any film ever, frankly, because the way that Yang takes you through these characters and these sequences of events and the whole story of some of these characters' lives draws you in so many different ways, and I never felt like I was getting bored or that there was any sort of lull in what was happening on screen. I was constantly invested in everything that's going on, which for a 4-hour film is insanely impressive. But as a result of that runtime and the scope of this film, it's able to touch on some really interesting topics, teenage angst, that sort of search for guidance at that age in a time like this. But it also touches on parenthood, love, first love and friendship and loyalty, and there's this whole theme of individuality versus the collective in these groups that the kids find themselves in, and what it sort of means to find your own voice within a community. But that's all woven in with the kind of political unrest of the time, and as a result of that, the whole thing feels so authentic and so real, so documentary-like, which is, again, quite a cliche thing to say about a film. But it does a lot of things really, really effectively to sort of engross you in all of the characters and the world that they live in. And it's one thing to be able to pull that off, but it's another thing to be able to do it so effortlessly. It doesn't ever feel like Edward Yang is explicitly trying these things to get you sucked into the world. He just does it, and he just shows things. And I didn't realize until afterwards, but apparently Edward Yang on the production of this film actually used something like over 100 amateur actors, people that have never acted in anything before, that they're not really actors, they're just people. It's also just gorgeous. The way this film is photographed is just stunning. There are a few frames in this film, well, more than a few, where the light of the scene feels so tangible and like you could just reach through the screen and feel it. Everything that was happening, I could just feel it. I could feel it happening. And I really want you to be aware that I know how wanky I sound saying these things. But another thing I absolutely loved about this film is the way it tells its story and the way the story unfolds. And I love the way that it's all sort of building towards and working around this central event that happens in the film. But it does it in such a natural way. And for a large portion of this film, it's never exactly clear what it might be building to. You're just sort of willing to go along for the ride and see where these characters end up going. And even when it's frustrating and these characters make decisions that you just sort of hope they don't end up making, it all makes sense because of the groundwork that Yang's done here in crafting a believable world that feels lived in, and B, in sort of setting up the backdrop for how characters like this might evolve. By taking enough time to set up the environment these people are in terms of politics, in terms of their relationships with each other, and in terms of what's happening at the time, it suddenly feels so much more understandable that these characters would make these decisions. And that is maybe the best thing you could hope for in terms of writing in a film. Full stop. And that again makes the runtime feel completely earned. I mean, it's just, yes, I'm happy to watch these characters do whatever they end up doing. I could watch 5-6 hours of this shit. And I love the way that different characters weave in and out at different points. And at certain points in the film, it almost feels like there's different lead characters that you're following. I'm just so impressed and so in awe at the way Edward Yang is able to create a 4-hour-long epic about so many different characters in such a tumultuous political time that doesn't ever feel lost, and it doesn't feel like a single moment of that runtime is wasted. That is insane to be able to pull off. This film is a goddamn masterpiece. I loved it, and I'm so happy that I did love it. I was a bit worried that it was going to disappoint me because I'm telling you, this was like top of my list of films I needed to watch. But within like the first hour, quickly just all expectations and all thoughts I'd had previously about what this film might end up being were gone. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just happy to be watching whatever Edward Yang was doing here in this film. But also, I feel like I kind of have to show you. I mean, it's just nice packaging, right? Look at this. Look at that. That is a nice booklet. You can't feel through the screen, but if you could, you'd be going, You've got director's notes. You've got an essay you can read about the film. I'm telling you, these Criterion releases are, they're going to be big. That's a joke, of course. They're huge, and I can't get enough of them. But yeah, those are my thoughts on one of the most acclaimed foreign films of all time, A Brighter Summer Day. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, I feel like that's probably a bit of a hot take. But if there are any other films you'd like me to watch and do full reviews for here on the channel, do let me know. Always happy to take suggestions, but now more than ever, I want to be watching new shit and good shit and getting those thoughts out for you guys. I'll see you guys soon for another review, but also if you haven't seen, I'm doing a Q&A to celebrate hitting 3,500 subscribers, so the link for that's in the description below, but ask me any questions there, please. Until next time, I'm off to go and just feel this Blu-ray forever. It's my favorite one now. This is it. Love it.